Hey folks, Bridges here. Quick video that hopefully will help you in reading some of these dimensions on the miniature train project. So learning how to read the dimensions is one of the biggest challenges when starting this project. Once you get the hang of that and that light bulb comes on, the rest of the project is not too terribly bad. It's actually kind of fun. So let's get into it. We'll practice reading some dimensions together. So the main thing that we're looking for over here is we've got to learn to read between the arrows, and then we've also got to see what the arrows are exactly pointing to. So a little thing to keep in the back of your mind when you're first starting is to remember that the arrows that go up and down, that is a distance between two things that are horizontal. Okay, so this is a vertical distance of 1.375, and that distance falls between this extension line, which we can trace back. I actually use my finger and I trace it back, and I keep one finger right there where that ends. And it looks like the thing that's pointing to is the center of this big arc here on the front of the train. Okay, so I'll keep my right finger on that, and then I'll come back and I'll look, and I'm looking at 1.375, so I'll look at what the baseline is pointing to. And when I trace my baseline back, look, it's got lots of arrows pointing to it, but where it ends up with a little gap right there, you always want to look right after the little gap, because the extension line, which is what this line is, the extension line is not supposed to touch the item that it's pointing at. And for this case, it's the bottom of the train, the base of the train. So the distance between the base of the train and this center point of this arc is 1.375. Great, so now we've had one practice under our belt. Let's go ahead and read the question and do this one. So it says, what is the overall functional width of the part? That means the distance from side to side. Type the number exactly as shown without any units. Okay, hopefully I didn't overly complicate things with this question. The reason I put functional width is because that means when the train is acting as a train, the side is this long side here where the two wheels are, yes? Now, the reason I put that word functional was because when we are doing a multi-view drawing of this thing, we might want to call this side, this right side of the train, actually this would be the left side of the train, I'm sorry, the front view, because it is the profile view and it does show the most detail to show what the train looks like. So even though this would be considered the front view, it is the actual functional side of the train. This is the actual functional front of the train, and so on and so forth. Hopefully that does not confuse you. If that confused you, just kind of forget that I ever said it. So we're talking about what's the distance from right here, this edge where it disappears, over to this corner edge right here. Well, to find that, we need to find the arrows that point to those. And in order to find the arrows, we need to find the extension lines that come off. So looking over here on this back corner, I see that there's an extension line that comes down right here. And I'm going to trace that all the way down because I know that the widest distance is probably going to be the furthest one out from the body. Okay? And sure enough, right there it is. If I trace this one down, the arrow points across to the opposite corner, and that's where I want to be. So that dimension that we go through is 2.00, and it is important that on this mini quiz, this little pre-quiz, that we actually type it in as 2.00, because that's how that's how the answer, that's what the exact answer is, and that's how it's going to get you the correct points. So that's the last one I'm going to give you the answer to. From here on, we're going to just look at the question together, and you're going to find the answer yourself. So number 2, what is the overall depth of this part? Now this means, to clarify, the distance from the front, the functional front, to the back, which disappears right here. So what we can do is we can find the extension lines that come off of this back corner right there, and the line that comes up, the extension line that comes off the front corner right there. And sure enough, you can look down between those two, and as I said before, since that's the longest dimension dealing with this corner and that corner, it's going to be the furthest away. The shorter dimensions get stacked up closer to the body. Okay, so that things don't overlap too much. All right, so hopefully you've got that one, the distance between the front and the back. Let's go on to the next question. It says on the side, so I'm assuming that's the side that we're looking at. On the side, how high are the axle holes from the bottom of the part? Type the number exactly as shown. So we're looking at, these are axle, because these are holes, they've got center marks. right? There's a leader line pointing to that one. Okay, we're going to assume those are the axle holes where the train axle, where the wheel and axle goes through. And sure enough, we look down at the extension line. There it is. Okay. Now, I will go ahead and mention this leader line. It's pointing at one of the holes, and it is giving some more detail. So it says 1/4-20 UNC. It's got a down arrow with a cap on it with a distance of 0.875 times 4. We don't know what all that means. That is going to be something that we're going to learn about in the next couple of days. This is called a thread note, and that is when you have a bolt or a thread, this is the information about the different thread sizes. And also this is the depth of the hole. Okay, these holes go into a depth of 0.875, so they don't go all the way through. And it says right here that means simply that there's 4 of them. Okay, and we can see 2 on this side, yes, and we can assume that there's going to be 2 on the other side, just straight across. That's why it says times 4. All right, great. We're moving on. We're looking at question whatever this is. How deep are the 4 axle holes? Well, now I didn't expect you to know this. So maybe there was some trial and error, but hopefully you looked and you saw that there was this thread note, this arrow pointing at the hole, and maybe you inferred or took an educated guess that this symbol means depth, the depth of a hole. So yeah, there's your distance, your depth distance, 0.875, and we know that there are 4 of them. That's all that means. Great, moving on. In order to sketch a hole on the top, okay, that's this hole right here, and it's for the smokestack to go on there. So for that to happen, you first need to create what to sketch on. Okay, and this is something that we talked about on our spider ring or our spooky ring project previously. There are 2 choices that jump out at me: offset plane or tangent plane. Okay, there's no such thing as a diverging plane. That's not a thing. Intersecting plane, I don't think there's a thing. Maybe there is. I don't really know off the top of my head. I guess that makes sense. There would be an intersecting plane, but that's not what we're doing. We want a tangent plane because it's going to touch the top of the circle just one time right there at the top. It's not going to cut through anywhere. It's going to touch just the top of that cylindrical surface. So a tangent plane is correct. I guess theoretically you could use offset plane as well, but there's no real distance from any other flat surface, okay, such as here to the top, or from the baseline to the top. There's no distance that we know to offset that. So that would be more trouble than it's worth. So yes, the correct answer is tangent plane, just to make sure that it barely just tangentially touches the top of that cylinder. Great, moving on. This part has a section of it sliced away so that you can see the inside. What is the shaded or the hatched portion called? This is something that you should know from your notes. Hopefully you have this in your notes from over a month ago. And I'm not going to tell you this one because you should know it, and if you don't, then you need to go back in your notes and look. Haha. Next, let's finish up here because we're at 8 minutes. You will use the revolve feature for this to make this. That means you're going to sketch the cross section of half of the part. That's what's shaded here, and then revolve it around an axis which goes straight up through the center. Okay. How tall is the overall sketch? Well, this is a pretty straightforward question. It's the distance from the base right there up to the highest point right here, and it's just like on question 1, we had just traced the extension lines out, and our distance is between the arrows 1.75. Good to go. Moving on, we're going to use revolve. What is the overall width of your sketch? Now be careful. Remember, when you're revolving, you've got a plane here, and your sketch is going to start on that plane, and it's going to come out towards you, and then back, and it's going to cross through that plane again. So we only need to draw half of what the entire body looks like, and it is always going to be symmetrical about that rotation, that axis of revolution down the middle. So we only sketch out in 2D mode the shaded area, the cross section that is showing currently. So that's technically half the cross section. I'm being repetitive. I'm moving on. So how wide will this overall sketch be? Well, before we revolve it, it's going to be the half of the width of the cylinder. Well, it actually doesn't tell an overall width of the cylinder, not a linear dimension from side to side. What we're looking at is actually there is what is that called? A diameter dimension for these circles. And because it's a circle, we know that we always dimension circles as diameters. So yes, it is a circle of a 3D when it's 3D, and the overall widest, you can agree that this is the widest part of the sketch. So this corresponding part would be right here, a diameter of 1.25. So when we sketch that, it's going to be half of 1.25, or what is that, 0.75? Hello, that's not right. 0.625 is correct. So we're almost done here. If you're still with me, you are truly dedicated to your success, so good job. What is the height of the hitch hole in the back of the train? That means the distance from the bottom edge of the train to the center of the hole. And that's a real simple one to read. It's right there. We're moving on to the final two questions. What is the diameter of the hitch hole in the back of the train? Again, a pretty simple question. There's an arrow with a leader line pointing at that diameter, so there you have it. And finally, what is the depth of the hitch hole? And once again, the depth is this down arrow, so there's your depth. Hopefully this was a helpful video. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment, or you can just simply send me an email. It's probably the best way. Yep. Have a good day.